So let's say you're doing a convex versus a concave curved unit. Either way, you are still running it on the curving line the same way. Are you just flipping the glass just based on which direction the curve wants to go?
Well, now you touched on another one. So if I go back, not 20 years now, if I go back, I don't know, 5 years now, curved glass, curved tempered, could only be made in the convex shape and have the coating on the second surface, but on the convex side. And now there's new technologies that we have invested on in which uh, we can have the coating on the second surface, whether it's concave or convex, it doesn't matter, and keep the same aesthetic on an undulating facade or on jaws where you want the glass to be concave instead of convex. And this is pretty new. So this is another limitation that was lifted a few years ago. And the key here is that the coating, it has to be away from the rollers always. It cannot be in touch with the rollers. Coatings are delicate. I mean, when I said protective film, I don't mean an actual film. I mean, I don't understand exactly the chemistry of the coatings, but it's something with the chemistry that allows the coating to be run through an oven without damaging the coating. But still, you have to run the coating very carefully because it's still very fragile. So we have to be certified to run coatings. We have to use special handling devices to handle coatings. And when we run the coatings on an oven, the coating cannot touch the roller. So if you flip the coating on top of rollers, it's going to ruin the coating. So the technologies that we use to do concave or convex glass have to do with how the oven is oriented, basically, in the way the rollers run and the way the coating runs away from the rollers always.
So that's just the curving process, but then insulating a unit like that. Can you talk a little bit about the process of actually applying the PIB and the spacer and the secondary seal, how that may differ than a typical flat unit? I'm just trying to paint a little bit of a better picture around, you send it through Avenue A, you send it through Avenue B. When you go down B, the curving process, every step of the way has to be slightly adjusted to handle the geometry of a unit like that.
Right, and that's where I go back to your previous question, which has to do with cost. When you the curving of the glass, curve tempering of glass, it's relatively similar to flat. Relatively, it actually has a lot of deviations when you start talking about, or differences when you start talking about different radii and different shapes and sizes, and which happens on many jobs in which you're using different radius, and so your efficiencies really go down. But really, when you start laminating the glass and when you start insulating the glass, these are manual processes. And it's not like we have machines to run long runs in which you can go fast and you have a lot of capacity. So your capacity is very limited, or gets more limited compared to running flat glass. And that capacity obviously increases the lead time, but also increases the cost because there's so much you can process. And going back to your question now, how do you apply the PIB and how do you apply the spacer? In our case, we use a flexible spacer which has the PIB already applied on and the desiccant already embedded into it. And so we apply it with the special tools that we have developed. And again, I mean, we do use a tool, but it's very driven, or it's driven by a person that is applying it. Then the silicone gets applied with obviously it's a machine, it's a gun, but it's got to be moving. It's a person, and like you said, every curve is different, so you have to have different ways to adapt to different curves in your line, and we don't run long runs. Unlike automotive, for instance, in which you have long runs of, say, windshields, we don't. I mean, we're going to be running a job which may have a good amount of pieces the same size, same shape, but we're going to be running another job which has different ones. And so that's a very good challenge that we have, and we enjoy solving.